Hey everyone, back again for yet another deck profile video. I know it hasn't been that long since I last did my vampire deck update, but I wanted to go and update it one more time because I found some new, really good combos, and thanks to Saryuja getting me Saryuja Skull Dread, I just learned that that card really gives a whole lot of synergy to this deck, so I wanted to share with you guys some cool new stuff, so yeah, let's get started. Okay, so like before, we'll start off by playing 3 copies of Vampire Scarlet Scourge. Definitely one of the best vampires of the entire archetype, because when this card is normal or special summon, you can pay 1,000 life points to target one vampire monster in your graveyard. Special summon, but cannot attack this turn. But that's usually not a problem. Mainly because you'll either go into like some Xyz plays, or if you just want to bring back your Fraulein, which you may have pitched earlier with the Foolish Burial or something. At least, you know, you can use her to beef up your monsters and all that. And also, whenever this card destroys a monster or monsters by battle, you get to, at the end of the battle phase, you can special summon any number of those monsters back from your opponent's side of the graveyard and add them to your side of the field. And that's really good. So yeah, that's why Vampire Scarlet Scourge is definitely a must at 3. Next up, we got 3 copies of Vampire Fraulein. Really excellent card because, like, whenever a monster declares an attack, you get to special summon this card from your hand and face up defense. And also, once per battle, you can pay any number of life points from 100 to up to 3,000 max. And you can target your zombie monster that engages in battle and increase its attack points by that number of points that you paid. And also, like Scarlet Scourge, if this card destroyed any monsters in battle, you can special summon those back to your side of the field at the end of the battle phase. So excellent card. Just know you can't stack this her summoning effect, because unfortunately that is a hard once per turn, but her battle effect is not. So if you had multiples, yes, you could pay, like, you can go back and forth if you wanted to. Next up, we also have, I decided to bump this up to 2 now, just because I thought that this really helps the deck a lot, but it's Vampire Duke. In my opinion, a little bit better than Vampire, or Shadow Vampire, I'm sorry, because Shadow Vampire has a very big weakness where, if you special summon a monster when it's normal summoned, using his effect, that monster is the only one that can attack for the duration of a turn. But with Vampire Duke, if this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a vampire monster from your grave and face up defense, but that's usually not a hindrance at all, and that's usually pretty good. Because at least, you know, if you have other monsters out, you can at least attack with those. And also, if this card is special summoned, you can declare a card type, a monster, spell, or trap, and your opponent has to pitch one of those from his deck to the grave. So that's why I think Vampire Duke is a little bit better now, so yeah, definitely play this at 2 rather than Shadow Vampire. I mean, I still run 1 Shadow Vampire just because, like, if I'm going first, Shadow Vampire does help out a lot. All right, so now these are an optional thing, but well, I wouldn't say optional, but there's 2 different ways you can play this. So let me just show you what I got. First up, I bumped up my Shadow Vampire to 2, only because I did happen to have 2, but Shadow Vampire is pretty good just because, like, if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add any vampire monster or vampire-related spell or trap. And also, if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it and normal summon 1 vampire monster in your hand without tribute. So like in case if you open up with, like, 2 level 5s or 6s, you know, but you have nothing to tribute. If you happen to have Foolish Burial in your hand, pitch this card, and then yeah, you get a free summon. We also have 2 copies of Retainer, which if this card is special summoned, you can pay 500 life points, add a vampire-related spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And also, if this card is in your graveyard, you can pitch 1 vampire card from your hand or on your field to the graveyard and special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. And then, of course, we also have 2 copies of Familiar, which pretty much is the same as Retainer, but instead of searching out spells and traps, it searches out a monster, and which is, in my opinion, the better one. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can play it the way I have it right here, like 2, 2, and 2, or you can get rid of the sorcerers entirely and just play 3, 3, or 3 and 3. So, like, it's one or the other. For me, I just like it this way, just because, like, the combos I have are just, like, work better for me in this variant. So that's why I like to play this exact ratio. But again, it's really out of personal preference, like which version you like to play a little bit better. Now, for the single vampires, we have, of course, as I mentioned, 1 copy of Shadow Vampire. Only good when going first, but of course, like, if you're going second, because I built this deck to where it can do both, like, you can go first or second. So, but overall, like when it comes to Shadow Vampire, if I open up with him, I kind of want to go first. But if I'm going second, I'll probably just get rid of him for like cost fodder or something. But overall, he's not too bad, at least, because when he's normal summon, at least you get a free vampire monster from your hand or your deck. So, I mean, he's not too bad, but he's not too relevant for this deck anymore. Moving on, we got one copy of Vampire Crimson, which is pretty good, especially when it comes to like early or late game, because like this card is out, you can pay 1,000 life points whenever your monsters would be destroyed by battle or card effect, and it's 1,000 for each monster. So like if you want to only save the ones that are important to you, then just save those. Don't waste too many life points, because you know you got to be able to recharge your life points. But if you have more than enough life points to spare, then yeah, go ahead and go for it. Next up, we also have Vampire Red Baron, which is one of the strongest vampire monsters in this archetype, because you know 2,400 attack is pretty good. And I learned this guy is actually pretty good in Monarchs, because you could actually because he's actually searchable in Monarchs with Return of the Monarchs. But of course, I'm not running any Monarch cards except Monarch Stormforth on the side. But overall, it's like that's it. But yeah, not too bad. All right, next up we got 2 Mizuki. I would run 3, but I only have 2. But still, like 2 is pretty good, because at least to fill in for the third one, you can at least run 1 Gozuki, because Gozuki also helps this deck. He's an additional Foolish Burial, and also Mizuki, you can banish it from the graveyard and special summon 1 zombie monster from your grave. And with Gozuki, if this card gets sent to the graveyard, you get to banish 1 zombie from your graveyard except itself, and special summon 1 zombie from your hand. So either way, I think this is still pretty good. Like 2 Mizuki, 1 Gozuki. So yeah, honestly, I'd never have any problems with these. Alright, for hand trips, we have 2 copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Real excellent card for this deck, because it's a tuner, and the fact that it's also zombie type in its own right, so you could bring it back later if you wanted to. And also makes for an easy Black Rose Dragon and or Beals, because you know it is a dark type tuner. And with Black Rose, like you have a level 4, which you can synchro to make Black Rose, or you can make, and you have plenty of level 5s to make Beals, so never usually an issue. And plus, it's good just because like if your opponent has more monsters on his side of the field than you do, you can at least discard it and then target or reveal 1 monster from your extra deck and force your opponent to banish any number of monsters if he has that card. So he has to banish like all copies. So like let's say Sky Striker is Kagari, your opponent has to banish all copies of Kagari if he's running Sky Strikers. And that's usually one of the biggest targets you want to hit, because like Sky Strikers are like one of the strongest archetypes right now, so definitely a must. Another good card, which in my opinion is one of the better hand traps to play, of course, as I mentioned, it's Drone Lockbird. Excellent card, because like a lot of decks these days are like doing a whole lot of searching, and they can really spam that out. So, but if you can like stop them from like adding too many cards to the hand, Drone Lockbird them, and they'll be done for the entire turn. Ash Blossom is great, don't get me wrong. I do like to play Ash Blossom too, because Ash really stops like really hurts Gokis, it hurts Trick Stars. So yeah. But Drone Lockbird, in my opinion, is probably the one you want to run more with vampires. So yeah, definitely a must. Alright, now for the spells, I've actually made quite a lot of changes on this, but of course, like before, I'm still running these, of course, at 3 of each. So first off, we still run 3 copies of Vampire's Desire. Excellent card. It's both Foolish Burial and Monster Reborn. Of course, you can only use 1 of these effects once per turn. But the first effect I like to use the most is because like you can target 1 face-up monster you control. It doesn't specify it has to be a vampire type as long as it's a monster. But the second part is like you do have to send a vampire. You send 1 vampire monster of a different level to the grave, and that monster becomes that level for the duration of the turn. And if you can manage to bring back that vampire you just pitched, easy Xyz play. And then, of course, the second effect is that you target 1 vampire monster in your graveyard and send 1 monster you control to the grave. And if you do, special summon that target. So it's a good way, like if you have Mizuki or Gozuki, pitch those for cost and then bring back your vampire monster, and then you can bring back something else later on. So like that's why Vampire's Desire is definitely great at 3. Of course, we still run this at 3 as well. Vampire's Domain. This card is basically double summon. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points. And during your main phase this turn, you can normal summon 1 additional vampire monster in addition to your normal or set. And even if this card leaves the field, so that means like if your opponent destroyed it with Ghost Ogre or Mystical Space Typhoon, Twin Twisters, la-di-da-di-da-di, you will still be able to resolve the normal summon effect. However, each time your vampire monsters inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you get to gain life points back. So that means like this is basically your way of replenishing your life points, because you're going to be paying life points a whole lot. And trust me, it ain't pretty, but if you can manage to regain all those life points back and get so much, you're pretty much set for the game. Like, you can easily OTK your opponent with this deck. So yeah, Vampire's Domain, I'd recommend it at 3. Now, I decided to run these now because, like, I noticed that I also do plenty of banishment as well with the sorcerers and the retainers, and I kind of need those back from time to time. So I decided to run these. Of course, it's only semi-limited anyway, but you still might as well run them. I run 2 copies of Burial from a Different Dimension. Yes, this card is so good for this, because you can target up to 3 banished monsters and return them to the graveyard. It doesn't matter whose graveyard it is, but of course you're naturally going to be targeting your own banished monsters. But I like to use this because, like, again, Retainer, Sorcerer, and Familiar all get banished. But if you run out of them, you know, you're kind of stuck, because, like, if you can't bring out some of your other monsters or search out anything else you might need, then yeah. But that's why I decided to run these. Same thing with the Mizukis, like, because Mizuki is not a once per turn. And if you kind of use them all up, but you can bring them back and you still have plenty of zombies to revive, go for it, you know? Like, you definitely want to use Burial from a Different Dimension. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. This card is so good with vampires, it's just not even funny. Alright, I decided to go ahead and throw in my own Foolish Burial, of course, just because, like, I did realize, like, yeah, I'm going to need all my zombies into the graveyard. So, yeah, Foolish Burial, definitely a good card to run. And I found that this card was really good with vampires, too, Reasoning. Solely because vampires don't have a consistent level. Like, what I mean by that is, like, I know the most popular choice to call when it comes to Reasoning is 4, but not every zombie in your deck is going to be level 4. The only ones that are going to be level 4s, which will not hurt you if your opponent happens to call it right, which are Sorcerer, Mizuki, and Gozuki. They will not hurt. That's not going to hurt you at all, because, like, especially, like I said, if you have Sorcerer in your graveyard and you happen to have a level 5 or 6 monster, or basically any high-level zombie or vampire monster, you can banish that Sorcerer, and you get a free summon without Tribute. So, like, Reasoning does not hurt this deck. It does not hinder me at all. So that's why. Oh, and if y'all notice, I don't run Allure Darkness in this deck anymore, because Allure Darkness did hinder me quite too many times. So, like, yeah, I don't recommend Allure Darkness anymore. I mean, you can if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend running no more than maybe 2. Running 3 is just too much for this deck, and it really hurts it a lot. So anyway, moving on, of course, we got Monster Reborn. And lastly, for the spells, Soul Charge. I don't run Book of Life anymore because, yeah, I somehow opened it up too much, and it just hindered me. But I thought Soul Charge was a better option, because, like, again, this deck is built to where you can go first or second. So, like, if you go first, at least, you know, you can go ahead and bring back some of your monsters, make a free Saryuja if you happen to make it, and yeah, you're good to go. Alright, for the traps, of course, we run 2 copies of Awakening, which helps you special summon a vampire monster from your deck, but you have to destroy it at the end of the turn. But it helps, like, if you kind of bricked on your first hand, but you happen to open up with one of these, at least, you know, you can special summon something, and then later on, like, if you have Fraulein in your hand, special summon that as well. So, like, Awakening really comes in handy when it really needs to be. And of course, lastly, we have 3 copies of Vampire's Domination. It is a hard once per turn, but sometimes that doesn't really hurt you too badly, because at least if you have a way to disrupt your opponent from activating a monster, spell, or trap, you can at least negate and destroy it, and also if you destroyed a monster, you can also replenish your life points with this as well. So I think Vampire Domination should be at 3. I mean, you can run it at 2 if you want to replace it with something else, like maybe a Solemn Warning or something, then go for it. Now, for the extra deck, I've made some minor changes as well, but nothing too grand. But overall, we still run these. 2 copies of Vampire Sucker. Excellent card because, like, once per turn, you can special summon 1 monster on your opponent's graveyard and to his side of the field. It'll be treated as a zombie. And whenever a zombie is special summoned from either player's graveyard, you get to draw 1 card. And also, whenever you do a tribute summon, you can tribute one of your opponent's zombie monsters instead of one of your own for a tribute summon towards a zombie-type monster. And what's good is because, again, the monster you bring back is going to be a zombie type. So she counts as both Monarch Stormforth and Zombie World. So I think that's really great. We run 1 Nightmare Phoenix. Nightmares actually help this deck quite a bit, especially because, like, Phoenix pops spells and traps. And also, if it's co-linked, you could draw 1 card. But you have to discard a card for cost if you're going to use that effect, by the way. And like Phoenix, you also run Cerberus, which, like her, but instead of popping spells and traps, you pop monsters, and of course you have to discard a card for cost. And if it's co-linked, you could draw 1 card. And co-linking in this deck's not too hard at all. In fact, and this is actually kind of one of the reasons why I changed the extra trick just a little bit to better serve this. Now, I no longer run Deco Togger in this deck. In fact, I found something that I thought was a little bit better. Of course, it's going to be Trigate Wizard. And Trigate Wizard is also a good Ghost Reaper target because a lot of decks are running this now. Because usually, like, if they can manage to make an unbreakable board with Trigate Wizard, you're screwed. So that's why I decided to run it myself. And of course, it's also, again, a good Reaper target because a lot of people cite this in. But what I also like to do is, like, to get the unbreakable board I need for this deck, I decided to run Saryuja. Saryuja is so easy to make on your first turn. Literally, it's not that hard. I've done it so many times, like, you wouldn't believe it. I was playtesting this just yesterday at my locals, and yeah, I filled my board with almost like 5 monsters, and I was still able to make a free Saryuja. And of course, if you can simultaneously get Saryuja co-linked with Trigate Wizard along with your 2 Nightmare cards, that board is virtually unbreakable, because like Cerberus keeps your opponent from destroying any monsters that are co-linked from battle, and Phoenix keeps your opponent from destroying any of your co-linked monsters by card effects. So like if you can manage to get all this, I managed to do it a few times, but yeah, it's just crazy. And by now everyone should already know what Saryuja does. Like if you use 4 or more monsters, you get to, or 4 monsters exact rather, you get to draw 4 cards, pick one, and the rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order, and from there you just kind of like simultaneously follow those effects below, which is like you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. But yeah, Saryuja really gives this deck some extra synergy. Oh, another good Ghost Reaper target, as I mentioned, is Kagard, because this is literally very relevant against Trickstar Sky Strikers. And of course, like with your side deck, you can actually make room for other monsters that you want to switch out, like depending on what you're up against. Like Goki, so you want to get rid of that Assault. Spirals, get rid of the Double Helix. So anyway, moving on, we run 2 Synchros now. 1 Black Rose Dragon for a board nuke, and of course Beals, just because he can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if any damage you take, you get to add, increase his attack points by that much. So Beals is definitely a must for this, and it's really easy to bring out in this deck. You wouldn't believe it. Alright, so for the Xyz monsters, we run 1 copy of Pilgrim Reaper, where once per turn you get to detach 1 Xyz material. Both you and your opponent has to mill the top 5 cards of your deck to the grave. It doesn't hurt you much at all because you need your zombies in the grave, and it helps you bleed out your deck just a little bit. And also, he gains 200 attack and defense points for every dark monster that's in both players' graveyards. So it's really good, but I just use him for defensive purposes. And once I'm done using his effect, I immediately go into Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger. So definitely a great card. So anyway, moving on, we have Dragulus. Pretty much better going second because like Dragulus is pretty good because like at least if he's sent to the graveyard or banished, you can revive him in face down defense, and also once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material, target 1 face up monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck, which is usually good against Pen Magicians or what else? Well, anything that's Synchro or Xyz related, you kind of want to just kind of want to Book of Moon them. But I like Dragulus's second effect a little bit better because when he's flipped face back up from face down defense, you get to send 1 card on your opponent's side of the field, does not target, and it does not destroy. So, like cards that are protected from destruction effects, Dragulus will get rid of it. And of course, we have Crimson Knight Vampire Brand, but I don't usually like his effect. I just use him because he's just a 25k beat stick. So I don't recommend using his effect where you detach 1 Xyz material and target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon to your side of the field. Because that monster, like kind of like Shadow Vampire's effect, it's going to be the only monster that's going to be allowed to attack. Now, if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can revive it at the start of your next standby phase, but it has to be in face of defense, which you could also use for fodder for Gaia Dragon. But overall, he's not good for anything else. And finally, we have 2 copies of Dampier Vampire Sheridan. Great card, especially like going second, because yeah, like I know I said like on my previous video, vampires are great going first, and I still hold to that true, but sometimes you do want to go second with this deck. So like, so yeah, what's great about Vampire Sheridan is like whenever you Xyz summon this card, like any monsters you took control of using any of the vampires that can bring back monsters at the end of the battle phase, they'll be treated as level 6s. So, and this guy can take more than 2 level 6 monsters for Xyz material. So definitely a great card. And also, once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material, target 1 card on your side of the field, and just send it to the graveyard. So like anything that has a destruction effect, it will not trigger. So, yeah, definitely a great card. I only run it at 2 now. I felt like 3 was just too clunky, so yeah, I just bumped it down to 2. Alright, so finally for the side deck, of course, we have some other vampire monsters. We have Vampire Grace, which is a pretty good level 6 monster. Whenever a zombie-type monster is special summoned through the effect of another zombie-type monster like Mizuki, you can pay 2,000 life points and special summon this card, and once per turn you can declare a card-type monster spell or trap. Your opponent has to pitch that from his grave. I do, however, have a second copy of Shadow Vampire, just in case. We also have Vampire's Curse, another great level 6. Because if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can pay 500 life points, special summon it, and it gains 500 attack points. But of course, you have to wait till your next standby phase to use that effect. We have Vampire Vamp, where a vampire monster is normal, or if she's normal summoned, or if another vampire monster gets normal summoned, you can take control of one of your opponent's monsters and equip it to her, and she gains attack points equal to that monster's original attack strength. And if she's destroyed while equipped, you can revive her from your graveyard right away. So great card. We also have Vampire Lord, just because, you know, why not? But I mainly just use him to bring out Vampire Genesis, which is 3k attack, and sometimes you do need that extra power just to take out some boss monsters. Also good sides, like in case, you know, depending on whether you're going first or second, I still run the one Book of Life. And this card also helps out a lot too, which is Monarch Stormforth. Really good card when going second. And these are also going good when going first, which is Anti-Spell Fragrance. So, like, yeah, definitely great cards to run. And that's only just 10 cards on the side, but again, the last 5, you should just make room for, like, any cards that you want to make as Ghost Reaper targets. That way, you know what you're up against, and you can just, like, kind of just screw over your opponent multiple times. Anyway, that's all I got for you for today, so I'll catch you guys again next time. And yeah, have a good one.